Hi, everybody. VPartySports here, welcoming you back to the VPartySports podcast. I'm here on this Thursday afternoon, a little bit after 3 o'clock. If you happen to get this at 3 o'clock, know that if you miss any of the information, you'll have replays coming up at 4 and 5 o'clock, right before tip-off. You can reach me at VPartySports on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook and YouTube, just VParty, as you see right there. As always, we appreciate your comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter and Instagram. Anywhere your comments are, we got big things going on in the sports wagering world, the sports betting world, and the sports world in general. It's been a big week and a half since we've last talked. Actually, we talked last Friday, so about the last 6 days. It's been a lot happening since then. Let's start with Super Bowl 57. Obviously, that's the big story. Philadelphia Eagles come off the big victory over the San Francisco 49ers, 31-7. Did not really need to use Jalen Hurts all that much. Jalen Hurts, 122 yards, 121 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. No touchdowns, no interception. Of course, Brock Purdy, the story of the game. First series of the game, fourth play of the game. He gets his elbow hit, ends up tearing his UCL. His UCL is right in there for those that have had surgeries or for those that are former pitchers. That's where the UCL is, and that's what got torn. He could not grip the ball. What happens is, and I'm no expert and I'm no doctor, but I'll tell you what happens from everything that I know. Every one of these ligaments is all like a nerve ending. And so if you get shocked in the nerve ending like this, it goes all the way down to your fingers. You're not going to be able to feel the ball. And that's what happened to him. He tried to throw one screen pass, and that was it. And then when Josh Johnson, the fourth string quarterback, they went through Trey Lance from opening day. Trey Lance got hurt, went to Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt week 7 or 8 against Miami. And then Brock Purdy came in as the third string quarterback, and Josh Johnson was there as the fourth string quarterback. Could they have gotten somebody else? Maybe. Could Garoppolo have suited up? Maybe, but we're not sure. Excuse me. Anyway, so Josh Johnson goes 7 of 13, 74 yards. He got sacked twice. The second sack, he hit his head on the ground pretty hard. He got ruled out for concussion protocol. Christian McCaffrey could have been a quarterback, and they would have done a lot of running with that. He did throw one pass. But it was incomplete. There was nobody there. It happened. But by this time, the game was over. You look at the recap of the score: 7-0. Miles Sanders on the touchdown. That was after a fourth down play. Devontae Smith made the catch. Did he make the catch? Did he not make the catch? Well, you can tell by the replays he did not make the catch, and that was on fourth down. So that could have turned it all around. With still a healthy Brock Purdy, 49ers go down and get a McCaffrey 23-yard touchdown run to tie the game up. And then Sanders again, a 13-yard run. After the turnover, after Purdy got hurt, after the turnover, Boston Scott, a 10-yard run, made it 21-7. And then one more touchdown for Jalen Hurts, a 1-yard run, quarterback sneak style, and then the field goal by Jake Elliott. So 31-7, the final score. Go through some of the numbers here as we just did for the 49ers. McCaffrey had 84 yards rushing. Samuel, Kittle, McCaffrey, Ayuk, 3-6-10, 11 catches is all they had for under 100 yards, 74 of those by Johnson, 23 by Purdy. They just didn't have a game plan going in. And Josh Johnson's role is probably the scout team for the 49ers. So he was Jalen Hurts all week, so he probably didn't get very much attention in terms of first-team play for San Francisco. Meanwhile, how healthy are the Eagles? Well, they lost Lane Johnson, their offensive tackle. He's going to probably play, but this 2 weeks off will help. Jalen Hurts, he was banged up during the middle of the year, but he seems like he's recovered from that. And they went out and they played well. Kenneth Gainwell led the team with 48 yards rushing. All this was after it was obviously over by then. 21-7, you could tell the 49ers weren't coming back. Miles Sanders, 42 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Hurts had the other touchdown. Boston Scott, the other touchdown as well, too. So 148 yards rushing. That could be Kansas City's weakness in the Super Bowl. They don't stop the run very well. They did on Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. But as far as the Super Bowl goes, 31-7, Philadelphia dominates over San Francisco. The season ends for San Francisco. Philadelphia moves on to play the Kansas City Chiefs. And you see the line here. It's 1.5 for Philadelphia. The total is 50.5. That started out at 2 after the Chiefs-Bengals game Sunday night. It's since been bought down to 1.5. What a game that was in Kansas City. 50.5 the total for this game. But boy, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It'll be very interesting to see how they come out of this game, because Patrick Mahomes' ankle, he got stepped on again, and so therefore you got to worry about his mobility. But with 2 weeks off, should be able to get it back to some form or another, and be able to work with that and operate with that as well too. But what a game it was for the Chiefs. 23-20 the final score. Joe Burrow had 2 interceptions. They were key interceptions. He got sacked 5 times in the first quarter. They finally started to pick up the offensive line play. Remember, they were missing 2 offensive linemen, Alex Capps and Jonah Williams. So they had to go to backups, and that affected Joe Burrow. 5 sacks, 32 yards, 5 sacks. Of the 5 sacks, 4 came in the first quarter. I believe Chris Jones had the first 2. If I remember looking at it. Yeah, Chris Jones had the first 2 sacks. He also had 3 tackles for loss, 3 solo tackles, 4 overall tackles. So what a game by Chris Jones. The interceptions, Jalen Watson on a bad throw by Burrow, and then Joshua Williams from the tap over. I forgot the other rookie, but the other tap over. Let's see if I can find the other rookie's name. Nazeed Johnson. Was it Thornhill? I don't think it was Thornhill. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, it was deflected. Joshua Williams caught it out of the air in Kansas City territory, ended up inside the 20-yard line, minus 4 yards on that interception return. Sky Moore was very big. He had the 1 punt return for 29 yards that set them up at midfield before the fateful Mahomes run and penalty by Joseph Osai that got Kansas City closer to a field goal for Harrison Butker. It ended up being 45 yards, but it would have been 55 yards with 8 seconds left, or else we would have gone to overtime. So the game started out Kansas City up 6-0. McPherson 6-3. Kelsey made it 13-3 for Mahomes, and then Evan McPherson another field goal at the half to make it 13-6. T. Higgins on a great throw by Burrow. He high pointed the ball very clearly, got up above the defensive back, tied the game up at 13 to start the third quarter, and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling made it 20-13. And then Samaje Perine tied the game up at 20, and Harrison Butker with 3 seconds left kicked the field goal that sent the Kansas City Chiefs to Arizona to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, 2 storylines here and let's go to the box score here real quick before we get to the storylines. Joe Burrow, 270 yards, the 2 big interceptions came back to hurt. Everybody's talking about the Osai play as the one that killed him. Well, he had 2 interceptions. The line didn't protect Joe Burrow. 1 play does not decide a game. I can tell you that. The game could have been decided when Patrick Mahomes fumbled and lost that ball. Cincinnati had plus field position on that turnover, but they couldn't do anything with that either. They ended up, I believe they got the touchdown on that, if I remember right. Let me see if I got that right here. The fumble led to a punt, so they didn't do anything with that. But after Kansas City got the next touchdown to make it 20-13, the fumble. No, they did. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it backwards here. The touchdown came off of the fumble, and that was the T. Higgins. Touchdown. That was the T. Higgins touchdown. Let me see where we're at here. Samaje Perine with the touchdown after the turnover. The Higgins touchdown tied it up at 13-13. So let's get the facts straight here. The 2-yard run by Perine was the one that tied the game up at 20-20. Obviously, the punt return that Sky Moore had brought it all the way back to near midfield. Mahomes couldn't find a receiver, ran for a first down, got hit 5 yards out of bounds. That was a good call. Unfortunately for Cincinnati fans, that was a good call. I know the officiating was criticized in both games, but the officiating for the most part was pretty good. Other than the roughing the kicker penalty in the 49er game, the officiating was pretty good. They did miss the 4th down call on Devontae Smith, but I also look at the 49ers coaches. You'll look at that right away because that's a momentum builder. And if they catch that 4th down play, it was clearly ball hit the ground. That would have been an incomplete pass. San Francisco would have had the ball near the 40-yard line, near the 45-yard line. So 1-1 for me. Had the 49ers +3. had the Kansas City Chiefs at -1. So it worked out well for me from that standpoint. But could have been a better game for San Francisco, but I give Philadelphia a lot of credit. On this day, they were the better team. I don't know how much of a difference Brock Purdy would have been. He is the third-string quarterback, first real road test. You never know. But that defense travels well. Their secondary played well. And they were holding them down for a while. And they were holding Kansas City down, Philadelphia down for a while. So we'll see what scenario goes forward. As far as the quarterbacks, as far as next season, we'll get into that later. Probably Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be back. Brock Purdy is going to get a chance to compete. Tom Brady retired yesterday, so his name is not on the list. What are they going to do with Aaron Rodgers? There's a lot of quarterback spots now open. Now Tampa Bay has a spot that's open as well, too. So lots of scenarios going on with the NFL. Lots of time to go through that. Right now, we're at LVII. That's 57 in Roman numerals. Super Bowl 57. There's your line. Philadelphia 1.5, the total 50.5. What do you think on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter? Let me know at VPartySports. All right, when we come back, we'll get the basketball scenario for this week. Lots of NBA action, a ton of college hoops, including the Big 12 SEC Challenge from last Saturday. We'll recap it all. We'll give you the games for tonight, and we'll take it from there. Vasi Vadaparty here with you on this Thursday afternoon for the VParty Sports Podcast. We'll see you in 30 seconds. Welcome back to the VParty Sports Podcast. Vasi Vadaparty here. Super Bowl line all set up. The Philadelphia Eagles. We hadn't had a chance to visit with you since last Saturday morning. So here's the updated line. Philadelphia -1.5, 50.5 the total. Fox Sports on Sunday, February 12th from Glendale, Arizona, home of the Arizona Cardinals, and somewhere where I'm hoping to be next week during the week for Media Row and Radio Row. So those of you out there, if you're in Arizona, hit me up on the messaging system. Hopefully we get a chance to meet up with some of the people that support this show. And I do appreciate it. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, Instagram for all your comments as well, too. All right, let's hit the NBA here a little bit. We'll get to the week of the NBA, but I want to get the lines out there for today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in the NBA tonight. Standings are starting to take shape here. The Boston Celtics are 2 games better than Milwaukee. Milwaukee seems to be playing a lot better lately. They've won 5 in a row. They're 34-17 to Boston's 37-15. Did you see what the Celtics did last night to poor Brooklyn? Oh, my gosh. They were on fire. They were up by 30 in the first quarter. They ended up winning by 43 points, 139-96 in that game. Not a lot of good distribution in that game, so not really anything that stands out in this game. Philadelphia beat the Magic 105-94. Memphis had an 8-point lead. They had a 10-point lead at one point. That was one of my games yesterday. Portland comes back. Dame time is all the time in the fourth quarter. 122-112. They cover the 5.5, win the game outright. Oklahoma City Thunder, they were a favorite. Hard to take them when they're a favorite because they're so much better as an underdog. 112-106. The Rockets win. The Warriors have only won 2 games on the road. They had a lead. They had an 8-point lead, 9-point lead. Don't sleep on Minnesota. Anthony Edwards is leading that team, and they've got some guys. Naz Reid, and they're not going anywhere playoff-wise, maybe, if they can get into the play-in round. But they've got some trading pieces there, and we'll get to the trading deadline in a second. But the Timberwolves come back and beat the Warriors 119-114. Do you know who's got the best road record in the NBA? Actually, let me make sure of that because I read that. I think the best road record in the West is what I read. The Clippers have 15 wins. The Sacramento Kings have 13 wins. They are number 2 in the Western Conference in road wins, are the Sacramento Kings. They get a 119-109 win at San Antonio. We know San Antonio's problems. They don't stop the ball on defense. They do put up a lot of points, but it's hit and miss right now on certain days for Greg Popovich. And you wonder what his mindset is watching this team give up 120 points pretty regularly during this season. The Raptors made a game of it with Utah. Like Toronto yesterday, got a push out of it, 131 to 128. The final for Utah. The story of the game was Walker Kessler. What a game he had. Block shots. He had 6 block shots in the first quarter. 6 block shots in the first quarter. He had 14 rebounds. He had, 17 points, 14 rebounds, 7 blocks overall. Lauri Markkanen has been a star for Cleveland. 28 for Utah, 28 for them. 13 rebounds ever since he was traded from Cleveland, I should say, for the Donovan Mitchell trade. Conley hit big free throws toward the end, 9 of 9 there. For Toronto, Fred VanVleet, also on the trading block, 34 points for him. He was 4 of 9 from threes on a 12 for 25 shooting night. But 131, 128, Utah over Toronto. The Atlanta Hawks, this backcourt is really good. Don't know how good the Suns are anymore. This might be a window closing thing for the Phoenix Suns, but they get blasted by Atlanta, 132 to 100. DeJounte Murray, part of the trade from San Antonio, 21 points. Trae Young hit a three-pointer in the second half that left before it slammed off the backboard through the hoop. It was one of those lucky shots, and that was kind of how their night went. Trae Young had 20. Murray had 21. Okongwu off the bench had 17, as did Bojan Bogdanovic, 18 points for Atlanta. Meanwhile, the Phoenix Suns, they got 23 from Mikal Bridges and 20 from DeAndre Ayton, 9 rebounds. They're 2 guys off the bench in double figures. Damien Lee leads the league in three-point shooting. And Dario Saric off the bench, 11 points there for them. But it was a 132-100 beatdown. The Hawks are now even at 26 and 26. The Suns are 27 and 26. All right, standings-wise, we said Boston is 2 games better than Milwaukee. Philadelphia is on a roll. They lost Monday night to Orlando, but they came back with a vengeance, covered the 9.5 last night. They're 8-2 in their last 10. That Denver game on Saturday was the one that kind of stepped up for Embiid because Jokic is the 2-time MVP and Joel Embiid was the 2-time runner-up. 33 and 17. Brooklyn after the loss, 31 and 20. Cleveland, who plays tonight against Memphis, 31 and 22. Miami rounds up the top 6 at 29 and 23. They have the Knicks, who are right behind them, in the 7th spot. Atlanta, Washington, and Indiana round out the top 10. All right, in the West, Denver, 3 games better than Memphis. Memphis with that loss yesterday. Denver got a big win on Tuesday night. They got it over New Orleans. They covered the 6.5. Jokic is playing out of his mind. They've got bench guys. They've got depth. Jamal Murray looks like he's getting closer to healthy or where he was before. They're 7 of their last 10, 7 and 3 in their last 10. And they are 12 and 12, 23 and 4, 23 and 4 at home right now. And Memphis is 21 and 4. They lost last night, so that took them even with the Denver Nuggets. They're 32 and 19. Sacramento in the 3 spot, the surprising Sacramento Kings. Good job, Mike Brown, 29-21. Clippers are 29 and 25. Can't figure them out. Both of those teams are 7 of their last 10, 7 and 3 in their last 10. Meanwhile, Dallas, 27 and 25. They're 8.5 back. They've got the Pelicans tonight. They're a 4-point favorite coming in. We'll get to the lines in a second. And then Minnesota is the 6th spot right now. They are playing well. They've won 5 out of the last 6. They're 28 and 26. Golden State, Phoenix, Utah, and New Orleans, 7 to 10. Remember when New Orleans led the West about 6 weeks ago? This is all due to the fact that Zion Williamson is out. Brandon Ingram was out. He's back now. So hopefully, for their sake, they can turn this around. Portland right there. But this West is bunched up from 4 to 10 to 11, even to 12 if you count Oklahoma City. 2 games separate 4 to 12, from 25 losses to 26 losses. And then Oklahoma City's at 27, and even the Lakers are at 28 losses. So they're only 3 games back of the number 4 spot. How about that? That's going to be interesting. So New Orleans, Utah, Phoenix, Golden State are the 7 to 10 seeds, and Denver, 35 and 16, second best record in the NBA in the West. So those are the games tonight. We'll have a lot more to talk about tomorrow. We'll recap these games, and then we'll have the Friday slate, and talk about the weekend a little bit before we get to our Saturday show. But that's where we're at with the NBA. All right, one quick note. Let's get through the lines real quick here. The Lakers are 2-point favorite. We don't know what day LeBron's going to break Kareem's record, but that's going to happen in the next week or so. 2-point favorite. I'm assuming this is on the assumption that both he and Anthony Davis will play. Indiana's very good at home in terms of covering the spread. I think they're 16-10 against the spread as a home underdog. 240.5 the total. What do you think about that total? You like that total? The Cleveland Cavaliers, 6-point favorite over Memphis. Saw what Memphis did yesterday. Had a lead, blew it. Trailblazers came back. Lillard was on fire. Nazir Little, who else was shooting? Anthony Simons. They were all lighting it up from threes yesterday against the Trailblazers in Memphis. This game at 223.5 as well. The Miami Heat, 2-point favorite at the Knicks. Heat playing better. Knicks at home. They just struggle at home for some reason. They just can't seem to win any games at home. And a lot of these teams, they're on the bubble of what they're going to do trade deadline-wise, whether they're going to buy or they're going to sell. Be interesting to see. 215.5 the total in that Heat and Knicks game. Chicago 6 over Charlotte, 236.5. I had this game about a week ago in Charlotte, 236.5 and over. And it went 68 points after the first quarter. So be careful. You don't know what shooting is going to come out after that first quarter. But it'd be interesting to see who's on the trading block, because a lot of talk about Zach LaVine as well, too. By the way, the trading deadline, if I hadn't mentioned it, is 1 week from today on February 9th. Dallas, we mentioned them already, 4.5 over New Orleans. They are in the 6th spot. So they're in the 5th spot, 1 game ahead of Minnesota. And then Denver, a 12-point favorite over Golden State. 12 points over Golden State. This seems like a load management type game for Curry, Thompson, Draymond Green. Iguodala's still injured. So this may be a load management. You may have to wait till nearly 9 o'clock for this game to start to be able to get the injury reports to see if they're going to be out because of rest or not. So 12-point favorite for the Denver Nuggets. And then Milwaukee, they're getting a late start tonight, 9 o'clock Central Time on TNT, 4-point favorite versus the Clippers, 230.5. Now, the Bucks have been scoring and scoring like crazy. Giannis had a 51-point game against Charlotte on Sunday, and they've just been rolling. And then they played who they played? They played Charlotte again yesterday, and they only won by 9. Let me see here. They won by they're playing tonight, so they played the Hornets on Tuesday, won by 9. They were favored by 11, and they did the same thing against the Pelicans. They won by 15 against the Pelicans on Sunday. So very interesting scenario here for the Milwaukee Bucks. Late start, 4-point favorite. Check the injury list, see if Giannis is on load management or whatever the case is, because the Clippers are playing well. When they have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the court at the same time, it's very interesting to see that dynamic. So there you have your NBA lines for this week. Don't forget the Daily Post come up at 6 o'clock. They'll have the best bets segment, the never duplicated, unprecedented, world famous best bet segment as well. All right, one note on the NHL. They're going to the All-Star break this weekend. Boston and Carolina are running away with it. 34-9 for Carolina, but 39-7-5 for Boston. That is 78. That's 83 points, 7 better than Carolina. And this is late in the year. This isn't like a close thing at all. And there's only one other team, and that was the Toronto Maple Leafs, that has 70 or better. They're right at 70. And this is after Boston dumped Toronto 5-2 on a nationally televised game a few nights ago. So we're at the All-Star break. Standings for the NHL. Right now it's Boston's world, and everybody's living in it. Carolina trying to make a run at Boston as far as the President's Cup trophy, but that's going to be hard. They're 7 points back, and we're already at 53 games in the NHL. 51 games for Boston, 51 games for Carolina. So that's where we're at right now. 30 more to go for the rest of this regular season. All right, when we come back, give you the college basketball lines, give you the college basketball scenarios, go through the best bets my week so far, which has not been great, but it's better than most. And so hopefully we'll improve on that today. In 30 seconds, Vasi Vadaparty here with the VPartySports podcast. You can reach me at VPartySports on Twitter and Instagram, Vasi Vadaparty on Facebook and YouTube. Love to hear your comments. Love to hear your thoughts on all these sports takes. Back in 30 seconds with the college basketball outlook. All right, back with you here on the VPartySports podcast. Vasu Party here with you. The college basketball scene looks like this. We will get to all the conferences, all the major conferences, and kind of recap the week, as we said, especially that Big 12 SEC challenge that happened this week. When I go through that, I'm going to make a case for the Big 12 being the best conference, top to bottom, in college basketball so far this year. All right, let's start at the ACC. North Carolina State got a big win last night. Huge win last night. They beat Florida State by 28 points, but it wasn't even that close. They had them up by 33 at one point. One of my favorite plays of the night, minus 10, easily coverage for North Carolina State, 94-66. They've got 2 wins this week. Georgia Tech got beat by Louisville. That's an upset. Louisville at home, 68-58. And then North Carolina got upset by Pitt at home as well, too. Clemson split the week. They lost on Tuesday to Boston College. Boston College has been playing a little bit better as well too, but they are 10-2 in ACC play. Virginia 9-2. Pitt, after their win yesterday, 9-3, and then NC State, Miami at 8-4, Duke and North Carolina at 7-4. So they're even in the loss column, but some more wins to go. But Clemson right now ruling the roost in the ACC. All right, move on to the American Athletic Conference, where it's the Houston Cougars world. They've got Wichita State tonight. They're a 12-point favorite on the road. 131 is the total. 8-1 in conference play. Temple got a win on Sunday. They beat up, or is it Saturday? Temple beat UCF on the road. UCF was a 5-point favorite, 77-70. Of course, Temple beat Houston early in the year as well, too. So these standings are now up to date. Houston with the 1 loss, 8-1. Temple 8-2, a half game back. Memphis 7-2, and Tulane 7-3. Cincinnati, who's played better, they're 6-4 in the conference standings right now. But you got to think right now this is Houston's deal to lose going into the mid part of February and into March. So Houston and Temple, the 2 teams, a half a game splits them up. Houston a 12-point favorite at Wichita State tonight, 131 the total. All right, moving on to the Big Ten. 2 games tonight in the Big Ten. Northwestern a 3-point favorite, 140 the total over the University of Michigan. Michigan got blasted by Penn State Monday night, and they just seem to be an up and down team right now. 11-10 overall for the year, 15-6 for Chris Collins and the Northwestern Wildcats. So a 3-point favorite there, 140 the total. And Ohio State, a 7.5-point favorite, 132 over Wisconsin. That's going to be an interesting game because Wisconsin and Ohio State has not played very well. They have not covered in a lot of these games. They barely beat up on Minnesota, who's not very good. 7.5 points could be a lot, but Wisconsin's offense struggles big time. And so 132 might be a way to go there. All right. Purdue 11-1 after dominating 2 victories. They had the Wednesday night victory over Penn State, and then on Sunday they beat up on Michigan State by 15 points. So Purdue rolling right now, 11-1. Rutgers beat up Minnesota for second, and Maryland coming back into focus with 2 wins this week as well too. So Big Ten kind of rolling it up. All right, I'm going to make a case for the Big 12 now. The Big 12, first of all, let me give you the standings, and I'll tell you why. Top to bottom, this league has gone out and done great things. They were 7-3 against the SEC. A lot of people thought the SEC was going to be very good, and they have good teams in the SEC. But top to bottom, this conference is as good as anybody. Texas at 7-2, Iowa State at 6-3, TCU at 6-3, Kansas at 6-3, Kansas State at 6-3. Then Baylor at 5-4, who's still really good too. Oklahoma State's a top 10 defense. They whooped up on Oklahoma last night. They're 4-5. Oklahoma 2-7, West Virginia 2-7, and Texas Tech, who even has some players, they are 1-8 in conference play. They're 12-10 overall, but 1-8 in conference play. Last night in the Big 12, only 1 game. That was Oklahoma State sweeping Oklahoma 71-61. It was never close. A 3.5-point underdog for the Oklahoma State Cowboys On Tuesday night, Kansas got revenge against Kansas State, beat up the Jayhawks by 12, and then TCU beat West Virginia 76-72. And then Monday, it was Texas over Baylor by 5. They covered. Iowa State blew a 28-point lead and lost to Texas Tech by 3. They were favored. Iowa State, Texas Tech was favored by 2. So they covered that one. Iowa State should have won that game. You're up 28. You don't blow that game. But Oklahoma State's top 10 defense showed up last night. They swept Oklahoma, and the rest of the league is on notice now for this coming weekend. There's a lot to look forward to this weekend. Kansas and Iowa State, Texas Tech and Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas, and Oklahoma and West Virginia. So there you have it with the Big 12. All right, the Big East. Creighton is red hot now. They've won 2. They won their last 2 games. They got a win last night over Georgetown. They didn't cover, but they did get the win against Georgetown on Wednesday night. They won 63-53. Seton Hall -1 over St. John's, 84-72. Villanova loses to Marquette, 73-64. And then what a game in Cincinnati last night. The Xavier Musketeers came back from 6 down to tie the game, 85-83. Providence's Jared Bynum was a man amongst men, hit the 3 to tie it, and almost hit the 3 to win it at the buzzer. That game ends up in overtime, and it was a terrific game to watch. And if you get a chance to see it, download it anywhere, I'd watch it. I'd watch it again because every shot, every intense moment was there for Xavier and Providence. All right, as we said, so because of the tight standings in this conference, Xavier and Marquette are tied at 10-2. Providence is 9-3. Creighton is 8-3. And then it kind of slips off from there. Seton Hall 7-5. Connecticut at 6-4. Villanova 4-7. That's kind of where the breakoff is there for the Big East. So still the Big 12 looks like the best conference in college basketball right now. All right. The Mid-American Conference, Kent State and Akron are leading the way. They're both 8-1. Toledo 7-2. All 3 games on Tuesday night covered and favored. All 3 games on Tuesday covered and favored. Let's see. Akron, Kent State, and Toledo, they all covered. The other games were Eastern Michigan by 11 over Ohio. And Michigan, Northern Illinois, 73-59 over Western Michigan. So the MAC Conference trying to make some waves. Now here's a very underrated conference, the Missouri Valley Conference, with their defections and their intake of teams. Belmont is there now. Murray State is there. Very interesting scenarios for the Missouri Valley Conference. The Drake game last night with Northern Iowa, 2 overtimes. It was unbelievable, 88-81 in favor of Drake. Murray State, a 1-point win over Belmont. Belmont's been the real surprise so far in the NCAA. And then Iowa, and then Indiana State over Evansville. Illinois State over Drake. Illinois State in overtime. Drake, Southern Illinois, Bradley, Belmont are all 9-4. That's 1-5. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1-4. They're all at 9-4 with Indiana State, Missouri State, Northern Iowa. Murray State, Northern Iowa, and Missouri State, all 8-5. So this conference is playing good basketball, and they're here to wreck some teams and wreck some brackets, if possible, when March rolls around in about 4 to 6 weeks. All right, Mountain West Conference, Utah State beat New Mexico. They covered easily. It was a 11-point win, I believe, for Utah State. It was an 11-point win, 84-73 for Utah State. Boise State on Tuesday night, they were a 7-point favorite. They didn't cover. They only won by an 8-point favorite. They only won by 7 against Air Force. Wyoming covered their game, 85-62 over Fresno State. Fresno State's just awful right now. UNLV, a 3.5-point underdog. They get by Colorado State by 12, 83-71. And then the upset of the night in the Mountain West was San Diego State getting beat by Nevada Reno. San Diego State, a favorite on the road. They were a 3-point favorite on the road, but Nevada Reno came back up and bit them. So it's going to be an interesting scenario in the Mountain West. Boise State, San Diego State now tied at 8-2. Nevada and Utah State are both 7-3. And then New Mexico 6-4, San Jose State 4-5, and UNLV 4-6. Have a shot And then from there on, it goes down to 3-7 and 2-7 and 2-8. So you got to think there's still some shot for some teams to try and make some hay. But right now, it's Boise State's world. It's San Diego State's world in the Mountain West. Pac-12, there are games tonight in the Pac-12. It is Thursday, so it's a Big Ten, Pac-12, WCC night. There are some lower conferences that are going as well tonight, but it's mostly Pac-12, Missouri Valley, and Big Ten. Stanford, Utah is playing in Utah. 6.5 for Utah. Oregon State, a 12-point road dog at Arizona State. Let's see, UCLA. That's a lot of points, 17.5 points. They don't cover a lot as a big favorite versus Washington, who's played better. Washington just came off a win over Arizona and played well against Arizona State and played well against Arizona last weekend. 136 the total there. Colorado, 15.5 versus Cal, 129.5. That's a lot of points as well, too. And Colorado State has not been great. In fact, looking at their standings, Colorado is 5-4-8 right now, while Cal is 2-8. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out. But I just can't imagine that 15.5 points, it might be too much for Cal. Arizona and Oregon, that's going to be a good matchup. Arizona 8 over Oregon, 150.5. The total, Arizona 8-3, 1/2 game back of UCLA, and Oregon 7-4, 2 games back of UCLA in the Pac-12 conference. All right. And then USC, a 7-point favorite over Washington State. USC, they're kind of up and down a little bit covering wise. They're 7-3, so they played well. They're 10-1 at home. And they've got a really tough Washington State team who plays physical, who can match up with you on the inside. A little bit of an outside shooting problem, but at 5-7, that is something that they're going to have to work on going forward this year. A 7-point underdog for Washington State, 131.5 the total. USC, Arizona, 8-2, 8-3, 7-3 for USC, Utah, and Oregon, 8-4 and 7-4. All right, finally, well, actually not finally, the SEC and the Big 12 Challenge. I'm going to make my case for the Big 12 right now, even though we're doing the SEC part of it. The SEC went 3-7 against Big 12 teams last Saturday. But Mississippi State beat South Carolina yesterday, Arkansas over A&M Tuesday, and Kentucky over Mississippi. Those 3 teams did cover. Alabama, after a crushing loss on Saturday to Oklahoma, they come back and beat Vanderbilt by 57 points, 101-44. How about that? 101-44, the final score for Alabama over Vanderbilt. Auburn waxes Georgia by 21 last night. And Florida, it's a slight upset. Tennessee has played well, but Florida is a slight upset over Tennessee because of their defense is also a top 10 defense. And Tennessee, when they're on offense, they just don't shoot the ball very well. Defensively, they're terrific. In this game, if you had the under last night with me at 132.5, didn't even get close. It got to 121. So I just like the way Florida's playing, but Tennessee, to me, has been disappointing. At one point this year, they were the number 1 team. They were consensus number 1 team. They were number 1 in a lot of people's eyes because of that defense. But offensively, they're just having a tough time shooting the ball right now. And Missouri over LSU. Missouri covered the 9.5 points over LSU. All right. Finally, the WCC. Well, let me give you the standings in the SEC before we go. The SEC standings look like this. It is Alabama at 9-0, Tennessee 7-2, Texas A&M at 7-2, though they lost this week. Auburn got a win yesterday. They're 7-2. Kentucky kind of finding its way back at 6-3. Florida 6-3 as well, and then Missouri at 5-4. Everybody else under 500, including Arkansas and Georgia and Mississippi State. Other than that, everybody else under 500. Well, they're all under 500, but these are teams that have been playing a little bit better than their records indicate. Arkansas with that win over Texas A&M the other night. All right, finally, the WCC. BYU 5 over Loyola Marymount. UOP 1 over Pepperdine. Pepperdine still has that Gonzaga win in their pocket. USD 2 over Portland. Gonzaga 14 versus Santa Clara. And then St. Mary's 12 versus San Francisco. St. Mary's holding on to the lead, clinging on to the lead. 8-0. I don't know when they play Gonzaga. If they play Gonzaga yet this year. But Gonzaga 7-1 can do some real good help to them if they can get a win against St. Mary's if they're still undefeated And then Loyola Marymount, the only other team above 500 in that conference. 6-3 for the Loyola Marymount Lions. All right. So we have you all set up for Thursday. Don't forget the best bets for week 5. Right now I'm 12-1. The 15 games over for the year to date. And then we'll have our show back for you tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern. The Daily Post will be on at 6 o'clock tonight on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget to make any comments, load any comments you want. Love to see them, love to hear them. Appreciate all the support that I get for this podcast. And then Saturday and Sunday, we'll go back to the early schedule and set up for a big day of college basketball, big day of NBA basketball this Saturday. Who's interested in the Pro Bowl? I'll probably have a lineup for it, but who's interested in the Pro Bowl? Hopefully not very many people. So that's what's going to happen this weekend. The following weekend is Super Bowl 57, LVII, Philadelphia, 1.5-point favorite, 50.5. Fox Sports will carry it 6:30 Eastern in Glendale, Arizona on February 12th of this year. So that's the way we look at it right now. The NBA, they're kind of feeling their way through. They got about a week till their All-Star game. The NHL is at their All-Star break. Boston and Carolina running away. And then the NCAA just finished their Big 12 SEC challenge where the Big 12 dominated. And now the rest of the conferences will get back to it. Today is a Big 10, Pac-12, and WCC conference games all going to be played today. And then we got some lower division games and things like that. We'll go through that all tomorrow. So 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, the VPartySports podcast on Friday. NFL, NBA, NCAA, NHL. Daily Post at 6 p.m. Eastern. Sponsorships available. Contact me directly. That's going to do it for me. I'm Vasi Vadaparty. Have a great night. Good luck with your games. You can reach me at VPartySports on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook and YouTube, Vasi Vadaparty. But have a great day. Have a great evening.